Hello, my name is Kerrie Maitland from Positive Dimensions, where we empower women to take control of their careers and make career changes with confidence and clarity. And today's session is all about how you make your CV work for you when you are contemplating a career change. And I'm delighted that we've got the lovely Laura Sherman with us today. Hello, Laura.
Hello, Kerrie. Thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity.
We're honoured. Now, Laura is going to give us the inside scoop because she has over 20 years experience in talent acquisition, I'll get my teeth in, acquisition and development. So we're going to pick her brains and see exactly how we make your CV work for you. So I guess, Laura, let's just get straight into it. How can I maximise my chances of getting an interview through my CV?
Sure. So I guess in terms of the way that companies now acquire talent and hire people, the CV, of course, is the main way that you can get your yourself, your brand, your experience, your passion, everything that you are in front of the right person, in front of the recruitment team or the decision maker in a company where they may not have an actual dedicated recruitment function. So the CV, of course, is absolutely crucial. Nowadays, the medium to bigger companies, and actually some of the smaller companies as well, are likely to use a system for their job applications. Systems are called ATSs, or the jargon, it actually stands for applicant tracking system. So what you'll find nowadays when you apply for a role is that you will either have the chance to upload your CV, either email it to a mailbox or upload it to the ATS, sometimes to actually fill in the online application form on the ATS and then upload a CV afterwards. Or the other variation is sometimes you're asked to upload a CV, and then as you hit save on that first screen, the system actually pulls out the experience, the paragraphs from your CV, and sort of pastes it into the rest of the form. You get the chance to go back and edit it. So you've got, there's those different ways that it works. But essentially, you are getting the chance to put your information in front of someone by one of those means. So whether you're writing your CV or whether the CV is being pulled through onto a system for you, or you're filling in an online application form, it's the same information that you want to include. And that, of course, is a blend of, for any candidate, it's selling themselves, it's talking about their skills and experience. But as someone who's looking to change careers, you've got that extra element that you want to include around why you want to change, why you're passionate about it, and what your transferable skills are. Now, CVs traditionally fall into two types. Chronological, which everyone I think is familiar with, and that's everyone's idea of a CV, the companies you've worked at, your job title, some lines explaining what you did and what you achieved at that role, and so on, any systems that you've used, just listing your experience. The other type of CV that you can write is a skills-based CV, which in a nutshell means that you showcase your skills first on the first page, and then after that you give a more scarce kind of framework of the companies you've worked at, the job titles and the dates. Now, as a career changer, skills-based CV can be extremely useful because it gives you the chance, if you imagine someone in the recruitment function who's incredibly busy looking at applications, or someone maybe who's the owner in an SME situation, maybe they're the owner of a medium-sized business and they've got 20 different hats they're putting on and off. They're pushed for time, basically. So if you've got a skills-based CV, rather than them look at your CV and say, oh, worked at the BBC for 20 years as a secretary, but you've applied for a role as a marketing assistant, that's next. If the CV is skills based and you've got the chance to write about all your transferable skills at the top, that's going to give you a better way in, for sure. So that's something that is definitely a very valid way to go. if you think of, if you visualise a CV and the first page of it, imagine it broken into 4 sections. So the very top of the CV, of course, is the basics, your name, your contact details. The next section down should be your personal statement. And that's the chance to really showcase yourself and what you're about in a few lines. Essentially, it's your elevator pitch. Kerrie, I'm guessing with your clients, you do a lot of work on this around how to position the change you're trying to make, you know, why you're trying to make it, and why you think you'd be great at that new career. So the idea is, in your personal statement, you say, write some succinct sentences that just create a really short paragraph that people can see at a glance. You could write, for example, enthusiastic, dedicated professional, looking to transition from a project management into a marketing consultancy role. You know, that could be your start of your little personal statement. Section 3 underneath there is where you get the chance to list some key skills. And this is where, you know, it's really essential to make sure that all your transferable experience shows. If you're writing a skills-based CV, you would then have your section with all your skills. So you could actually argue that to have the key skills and then a kind of skills section, you're almost going to duplicate. So you'd need to do some work on, you know, how to succinctly position the transferable skills you've got in those bullet points. It's probably worth just having a look. There's lots of resources online about skills-based CVs, and look at some templates and think about the way you'd make it work best for you, and the best way to highlight those transferable skills. One way that it's very valid, whether you actually career change or any CV, is to position those skills and present them in the same way that in-house talent acquisition professionals use competency-based recruitment. So really simply, in a nutshell, a skill or a competency is something that you would have. You have soft skills and you have technical skills or competencies. So an example of a soft skill would be influencing skills. An example of a technical skill or competency could be programming in C++, for example, if you're an IT computer programmer. If you have a skills-based CV, what you really need to think about is the competencies or skills that are needed for the role. You can do those. If you're applying to an actual job, you've got a good head start, because it'll say in the job description the skills or competencies that they want and what they're looking for, and then you simply mirror that back onto your CV. If it's a speculative CV, you could make some assumptions yourself about what skills or competencies and experience are needed. You can also look for either job ads in other companies, maybe companies that are advertising, or literally just find on LinkedIn or on job boards expired job ads which show you the competencies. So that's actually quite a good hack, just to see what skills are really needed. And then you can mirror that back onto the CV, so write out the competencies. And the way that this fits together really nicely is if you do this bit well, and the gods are in favour and you get an interview. If it's then a competency-based interview, you're really almost in your interview prep at CV stage. So when you're asked in a competency-based interview, a recruiter might say, one of the really key skills in this role is influencing senior stakeholders. Our board are tough cookies, they're really demanding. Give me an example of a time when you've really had to use your influencing skills to your best ability. What was the situation and what was the outcome? Textbook competency-based question. So, think about how you'd answer that. But you can actually almost write that on your CV. So the heading would be influencing skills, and then underneath you've got a line saying, finally developed influencing skills due to 25 years working in the construction industry with demanding suppliers, and having to, negotiate best prices, or, something like that. So it's mirroring back those skills and competencies. And as I say, if you're using the skills-based CV, you've got all of those, further at the front. They're going to catch someone's eye. That's fantastic.
With applicant tracking systems, What are the things that we need to consider in terms of the format of a CV?
So again, I would recommend do some research, because there's quite a lot of information in the public domain. But essentially, companies are using applicant tracking systems in different ways nowadays. Some of them use them, in the most basic sense. They are a post box system. So as the recruiter, or as I say, as the employer, you can upload a job ad, and then people will apply. They'll supply their information, possibly with the CV, possibly with the covering letter, and you at the other end behind the scenes take everything out of the post box and read it. That's the most basic use. The systems are much more sophisticated than that, and bigger companies will have things configured in a much more sophisticated way to help them cope with the volumes of application. So a lot of the time, the system will have an algorithm in it, so that it might be looking for particular keywords in CVs. Sometimes this is done much more explicitly, because companies will actually load the system, create the job ad with killer questions. They're not always called that. That's a bit of behind-the-scenes jargon, I guess. But questions that will, depending on how you answer them, will keep you in the process or knock you out of it. A lot of the time, they're very, very factual, and you can't get around them. You just have to answer them, of course, honestly. But there'll be basic things like, are you eligible to work in the UK? Or in financial services, they could be, have you ever been declared bankrupt, for example. There's also the ability with lots of these systems to put in screening questions as well, which could be, French is a prerequisite for this role. What level is your French, written and spoken? Have you programmed in C++, for example, if it's an IT role? These will, in some contexts, companies will use these like the killer questions. So if, it's can you speak French, yes or no? It could be that then behind the scenes your application is stopped at that point. Or in some systems, they're then used to rank the candidates. So when the recruiter goes in and looks at the 40 applications they've received, there's actually a column on their screen next to the candidate names with little stars and, stars against some people's names or scores, and they're driven by those questions. So
sorry, Laura, I had a spider come down.
That's great. Spiders are meant to be lucky though, aren't they? That's fun. A guest appearance spider. Back to nature, lockdown. Yeah, so the CV, so the system will be, in some contexts, the system will rank you depending on the way you answer certain questions on the application stage, or certain keywords on the CV. So I guess in terms of making your CV most likely to get through that screening stage, there's two aspects. One is purely the visual. So again, I say recommend that you look online. There's lots of information available. But keep your CV essentially as plain and black and white as possible. Use a standard font, nothing kind of swirly or curly. So, Calibri or Arial, nice clean fonts. Mm-hmm. Don't have boxes or shading. This is one that people don't always know. So I actually, for a while, had on my CV a kind of a table, just to keep it nice and neat. So I had my key skills in a table, and then I'd done the thing in Word, where you make the table, the box transparent, so it doesn't look like a table, but actually they can stop your CV getting through a system. That's quite interesting. So, just use the kind of the most simple formatting. Obviously keep it so it still looks neat and everything's aligned, but simple formatting, black and white, simple fonts. The other big thing, though, around getting through the ATS is around, say, some companies have their ATS configured to look for keywords. So that's around making sure you use the right language. Try and find out as much as you can about, the company or the industry you're trying to work in, what the right kind of language might be. So that could be, if you're going for a marketing role, for example, I know in marketing there's lots of kind of buzzwords and jargon. So the system might be looking for someone who's actually got the words, SEO optimization, as in search engine optimization. If you've got that sort of literally there, listed on your CV as something that you're expert in, that could be the difference between the system picking your CV up or someone else's. Make sure as well you're using quite current job titles. So for myself, really key example, what I do in terms of talent acquisition has been called so many things over the years, and in different companies. For me, I've been called a recruitment manager, a head of recruitment, a talent acquisition specialist. I've been called a resourcing officer at one point because I worked in a French bank and that was the title. Make sure that you have got the current word. So for me, in my world, talent acquisition is the modern way of talking about the acquisition half of what I do, talent development, talent management being the other half of what I do. Make sure that you're using the right language, and also make sure you're not using jargon that is specific only to a company that you've worked at, and it's not going to mean anything to the outside world. Well, that's another one.
Really good golden nuggets there, Laura. Thank you. One of the things we talk about with clients going through changes is that the power of your enthusiasm and motivation. So you could be up against someone who has all this experience, but they're burnt out, they're bored, they don't actually enjoy the job anymore. And so, you sometimes actually can get that advantage because you're passionate and you're driven about what you're doing. But that's great at the interview, you can get that across. How do you get that passion and that drive through on the CV, which essentially, or in the online applicant process, which essentially is just a piece of paper?
Sure. So there are various ways that you can maximise your opportunity here. One is around the language that you use on your CV. So as much as possible, particularly in the personal statement, use words like passionate, enthused. Also use action verbs as well. So when you're talking about, your skills, you're talking about your experience and your achievement, make sure you use the right sort of verbs. So things like achieved, led, drove, those kind of verbs that, as I say, action verbs, I think, it speaks for itself, that's what they are, but they sound like you're someone who is passionate, who is enthusiastic, who's going to drive things forward. Dedicated, you might want to put the line, just for example, you might want to, you can say, I don't know, like you've managed 6 people, managed a team of 6 people, it's the factual way. Dedicated, manager of 6 people is just another way of saying the same, but it sounds like you were passionate about doing it. So give some thought to the words you use. Covering letter is a golden opportunity to really sell yourself and really explain what your passion is. That's a perfect chance. Also, sometimes on the applicant tracking system, there'll be a paragraph, a box to write a paragraph near the end, supplementary information. Again, depending on how the person that's configured this system has done it, it might be really obvious and nice. It'll say, please tell us more about why you'd love this role. It could be that they've just had this system, out of the box, the vanilla system as it were, and it's just got supplementary information in that box. But regardless, that's your chance to really sell yourself and talk about how passionate you are, sure. So, I definitely recommend doing that. Something else as well that I think can really set you aside from other candidates is to, wherever you get the chance to write about, why you want the job, whether it's in a covering letter or whether it's in that supplementary information box on the applicant tracking system, is find something unique about that company and why you want to work there. So it could be that they've got, fantastic environmentally friendly policies and you're really passionate about that. It could be that they do lots of great charitable work and they've got a great, CSR agenda. It could be their brand. So it could be, if you're applying to John Lewis, that you'd be really proud to work for a brand with, the 152 years history or whatever John Lewis are up to at the moment. You need to find the tag. It could be if you're looking at law firms, for example, they are very keen to showcase on all their websites how many hours of pro bono, free charitable legal services they provide to disadvantaged people and to charities. Whatever it is, it could be, if you look on Glassdoor, you could see their employees are saying, this is a fantastic place to work because of X. whatever it is, try and find, you know, the reason why you want to work for that company, not just, you know, the kind of almost what's in it for you in terms of the work you'd be doing, but the bigger picture of why you want to work there, and weave that into any opportunity that you get to say so. And something else actually as well, in fact, on those lines, again, if it's a bigger company, this is easier to do, but look online and read about their values. And you can then, you know, it's really powerful if you can weave that into the covering letter. So, you know, I was so engaged to read that one of your values is X. That really resonated with me because, you know, my personal value is Y, or is, you know, X plus 1, and, you know, tie that in, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all opportunities to say something that sets you aside from other candidates.
And I think when we've spoken in the past, you've said that unfortunately there's been too many times in your experience where it's been clear that someone has a very generic letter and they're not tailoring it.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. That's a very good point. So as I think as in-house recruiters, we'll all have seen a few of those letters where, as you say, it's you know, obviously very generic. Unfortunately, what you also see occasionally, and you do kind of cringe a little bit for the candidate, but it will be that they've taken a letter they've used for another job application and they've forgotten to change, you know, the employer name that they're applying to. So they'll say, you know, I really want to work at JP Morgan because, but you're sitting there in the recruitment team at, you know, at HSBC. So you kind of look at that and think, oh no, because not only is it, you know, obviously not showing that they're really passionate about working for you, actually to me equally bad is that the attention to detail is then questionable. So yeah, that's a really good point as well. Thank you, Kerrie. Yeah.
So get someone to look at it for you before you hit the send.
Yeah. Or at least, you know, do it and then come back to it a few hours later if you haven't got anyone else to look at it. Yeah.
I think, you know, final sort of question to put to you is the whole thing around salary. Yeah. So, you know, that salary question, you know, what are your expectations for this role, are kind of very awkward. We get uncomfortable about saying what we really want, and we don't know how to do it. What's your advice here, particularly if you have no information on what the job can command?
Sure, it is a tricky one. Unfortunately, there isn't, you know, there's no silver bullet for this. And as the world of work and the way that companies attract talent changes, this does make it harder. And that's for the very simple reason that what most companies are doing now, because of the technology that's available, people are seeing that using recruitment agencies or headhunters, obviously there's a fee, there's an expense. So they're trying to attract more people directly, whether that's, you know, putting an ad on a job board, or whether that's, you know, if they're bigger, using the full-blown, you know, career site, applicant tracking system that we've been talking about. Most companies in the UK, in the private sector, will, for in the main, not advertise salaries. You know, that's just a cultural thing, I think, and also, you know, protecting kind of market intelligence, sensitive data. So, you know, if you're going through an agency or a headhunter, you're okay because they'll know the salary range. If it's a role that's being recruited direct, you know, that can be tricky for you. I think all you can do is be honest when you're asked, but try, if you can, to withhold the information until you're at interview stage. And by that I mean that if on the applicant tracking system, there's quite often two boxes, you know, what was your last salary, what are you looking for? Now, it could be that if you've got an idea that what you were on and what you're looking for, you know, aren't that different, if you've maybe done some wider research, you've got, you know, a rough idea that, I know, you were on 30k and the role that you're going for is likely to be paying the same, then you're fine. You know, that's great. Fill that in. If you are looking as part of your career change to take a big drop in salary, if you do get the chance to discuss that at interview rather than just put it on a screen, that is better because you can position it, and by that point you'll already sold yourself in the interview and they will already kind of understand your rationale. Conversely, if you're looking, you know, for a big salary increase, again, if you're selling yourself and it's coming to the end of an interview where you've wowed them and they're thinking, "Look, you know, this person's great," and then, you know, they ask you, what are you looking for? And you say, well, I was on 30k, but actually I'm looking for 60 because, I don't know, because I've taken 2 years, you know, to do an open university degree, and, you know, this thing that I'm so passionate about that I'm transitioning into, or for whatever reason it might be. Again, you can always do all that much better in person. If you get the chance to write a covering letter again, or that box on the applicant tracking system on the application form that asks for extra information, these are perfect places to, you know, explain your rationale for the salary you're looking for if there's a major discrepancy. If you suspect there's not much of a discrepancy, you know, and you're looking to just kind of move sideways money-wise, I'd just leave it. You know, it doesn't have to be the elephant in the room. It's only if you are looking, you know, to take a huge drop or the other direction. But any chance you get, again, to, you know, to write some free text explaining the rationale, then you'll get a gut feel, you know, is it appropriate? So to write, you know, as you'll see from the application form, I was earning 30k. You know, I would now like to move, you know, closer to 50k because I've spent 3 years, you know, holding down a demanding role whilst retraining as an IT programmer in the evenings, you know, something like that. You'll get a feel for it. Another really good tip is on some of the applicant tracking systems, again, it depends completely on the people behind the scenes that configured that system. So some of them will, where it says what was your last salary, you can actually type free text in that box. Some of them it's set up so that you can only type 40k. You know, there's 40 and 3 zeros. There's no way the system's set up that way. So I'd say if you are, you know, looking to change salary dramatically as part of your transition, and therefore you prefer not to discuss it until, you know, it's further down the line, just try in that box where it says what was your last salary, or kind of probably more in the box where it says, you know, what salary are you looking for, try typing TBA or negotiable, and then at the bottom of that screen when you hit save, it will either let you move on to the next screen and you're okay, or it will just say, you know, you haven't filled in the kind of mandatory field, you can't move on in the system, and then you'll know it's forcing you to put actual numbers. And it is what it is. Sometimes that will be the case, but you can try and work around it as much as you can until you've had the chance to be face-to-face in front of someone, let them see how amazing a candidate you are, and then it just gives you that bit more leverage.
Brilliant. Laura, lots of golden nuggets in there. Thank you so much. If people would like to get in touch with you, maybe they would like help with their CV, we're going to direct them to you on LinkedIn. So that's Laura Sherman on LinkedIn. And, you know, big thank you for taking the time to share with us your wisdom and to give us inspiration on how to make that CV work for us. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. You're very welcome. It's lovely talking to you. Thank you.